I finally watched Solo, A Star Wars Story. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and I've seen every major release, as I'm sure most of the population has, except for this one. Why is that? Because on the surface, it's a pretty fun, entertaining, enjoyable movie, but it still never seemed to gather an audience. I've tried to sit through this movie on 2 separate occasions and fell asleep both times. But the third time was the charm, and I finally finished this one. It's got a lot to love, and it's got a lot of just... It just exists. Doesn't do much else. Fun fact, Solo, A Star Wars Story is the lowest performing Star Wars movie at the box office, and it was pretty much considered a flop. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for clicking on the video. If you're not, thanks for coming back. Today we're here to talk about movies that flopped and what I would have done differently to make them succeed. Me being the equivalent of Steven Spielberg, and yeah, I know what I'm talking about, I would hope. Let's talk about what I would have done differently, because this movie isn't actually that bad. It's pretty difficult to pinpoint the exact issues with this movie, because if you just watch it, it's good, it's fun, it's entertaining, and it does what a Star Wars movie is supposed to do. So where exactly did it go wrong? Because you can talk about the production issues and how they had to fire the original directors. Ron Howard was brought in and had to reshoot over 80% of the film. Not to mention, not a lot of fans were asking for a solo movie. I think the casting was done well, and Alden Ehrenreich does as good as anybody else could have. I think replicating Harrison Ford's performance is a pretty tough task, and I'm not too sure why they decided to go that route. There's not really much about Han Solo's character that hasn't been told, and when it comes to the stuff that we haven't seen about Han Solo, that's kind of the point. So the movie kind of just shows you a bunch of crap we heard about and doesn't really provide anything new that is compelling. We're watching a young Han Solo, somebody who is interacting with a totally different cast of characters than what we're familiar with. They all do a fine job. The characters are nothing to write home about, but they're not bad, they're fine. I think the biggest sin that this movie commits is just existing. It pretty much removes any sort of mystery from the Han Solo character, and that's kind of what he thrives on. You're not too sure exactly where he lies, but you know he's on your side. So that's my first issue with the movie, is that Han Solo, he's not a mystery anymore. We get to learn about the Kessel Run and how he got his name. I felt like I was watching Alden Ehrenreich cosplay as Han Solo. I felt like we were just watching him as he was shuffled from one scene to another as he is collecting the ensemble that we know Han for. He gets his blaster from Woody Harrelson's character and is just handed to him. The name Solo is just given to him by an Imperial troop because he needed one. There's a lot of just insignificant points here, like the Kessel Run. We didn't need to know about the Kessel Run. We just know that Han Solo did it in this remarkable time. Or like his relationship with Lando. I really like that we felt this bond between the two, but we don't really know the stories and the ins and outs of every interaction they've had. Now we get to see their initial interaction. And I will say one point of origin that I really liked about this movie was him meeting Chewbacca. I thought that was an interesting way to have the characters meet and form a really unique bond right off the bat. What I liked about Rogue One was that it was a more grounded approach to Star Wars. It gave us a ground level view of Star Wars that was not really seen up until this point. We did get some of that in the Clone Wars series, but as a major main release in the theaters, this is the first time we're really seeing that. And so they decided to take that approach with the second anthology Star Wars movie, and so why didn't it work this time? And I think a big reason Rogue One worked is because we weren't really familiar with the characters in that movie. It really was more about learning them as well. And so when you put Han Solo, a very familiar, iconic character, into his own solo film, I think you really have to do the character justice and not just kind of shuffle him from scene to scene as we obtain his loadout. As I'm sure you know, this movie had a pretty rocky development. This movie is one of the most expensive films ever made, and it barely broke even. What I think they could have benefited from was a more reserved approach to Han Solo as a character. If you look at Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, there's a lot of new elements here that he introduces.
Pizza time.
But it never feels like it was phoned in. The scene where they give Han Solo his last name, it's like saying, hey, what are you, some sort of Spider-Man? I'm totally fine with self-aware. That's what Sam Raimi excelled at in his Spider-Man movies, but he also excelled at introducing new ideas to the characters that still felt organic. Whereas with Solo, A Star Wars Story, it feels like they're just ticking all the boxes so we can get the Han Solo that we're familiar with. I think Andor is a perfect Han Solo series, something that takes its time at telling us about this character and why he is the way he is. I think Han Solo really at the end of the day would have benefited from a full series instead of being a movie, and I think that's just where Star Wars thrives, in television. And I think if they want to do anything in terms of big budget movie releases, let's get some new faces, some new worlds, and take some bits that were introduced from the games and weave them into the movies and make them something more special and more meaningful. And it really felt like the production had been so bad that at this point, let's just get the damn thing out and move on. I think a big issue that Solo faces is the same as the Boba Fett series. They've already given us new new characters that are just clones of the originals that we know and love. Stories that we already wanted to see but told with new characters. Now I know that Solo came out before Andor, but if you look at the Boba Fett series, you're dealing with a character that wasn't really expanded upon outside of the extended universe type of content, something that not everybody is familiar with, and you're putting him into a major release. We've already got The Mandalorian, pretty much a clone of Boba Fett, but where that one is unique is that Han Solo is not a character we needed to know a bit more about. That was the whole charm of his character, and if they had just left it alone and given us Andor, we would have gotten that fixed either way. But at the end of the day, it's still a good movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out on like the weekend or something. If you're running out of things to watch, and there are redeeming elements to it. The visuals are phenomenal. Everybody does a great job in the cast. I just think it comes down to the production issues that really shot this one in the foot. If you haven't seen this, why not? If you have, do you love it? Do you hate it? How did you feel about it when it first came out? And I want to make this more of a series. Give me some more movies that were flops at the box office. Check out why they failed and what I would personally do to fix it, because I'm a Hollywood director and I know what I'm doing. There's a hair in my beard. Thanks for watching. Check out my last couple videos. Had a great time making those. As always, say it every time. Make sure you like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.